Hello, everybody. Welcome to 1 year of X-Files analysis reviews. And my cat is waving her ass in my face. You're going to get down if you're going to do that. Okay. Okay. And now she's going to go beat up her brother. Stop that. Okay. So, 1 year of X-Files analysis reviews. I started these last April, and I've had a fucking ton of fun doing them. And for all of you who have watched them all, or if you're just joining me now and you've put up with this angry feminist screaming about the X-Files, cheers to you. And here's to another year of wacky X-Files reviews, my bad singing, and my terrible props. So thanks for sticking with me. To celebrate our 1 year X-Files anniversary, I'm going to review an episode that I consider one of the best and one of the worst X-Files episodes. And that is the Season 3 episode, Avatar. This is a Mr. Skinner-centric episode. Always love those. Love anytime they take a deep dive into into the psyche of my beautiful bald dad. I'm 5,000% here for it. So let's get into it. The episode, Avatar. The episode opens with Mr. Skinner's divorce. I watched this episode for the first time when I was about 11 years old. And when it opened on Mr. Skinner about to sign his divorce papers, I was like, oh, we're in for a fucking treat, aren't we? So it's very jarring. And cheers. 1 year of X-Files reviews brought to you by water. And if you want to sponsor me, if you want to pay me to make these wacky feminist X-Files videos, I will happily advertise your product. Whether it's goat soap, crocheted sweaters for naked cats, whatever you make, I will gladly advertise it. And you can hear my chickens in the background there. They laid 6 eggs yesterday. Way to go, you little bitches. They usually don't lay any at all. So not jinxing it, but I'm proud of them. So, yeah. So it's jarring. You're just like, you're saying like, oh my God, Mr. Skinner's married and he's getting a fucking divorce. But I'd say half of this episode is very well written and very well crafted. The other half is some of the worst writing I've ever seen on this show. We'll fucking get to it. But let's talk about the very well written parts. This is written by Howard Gordon and David Duchovny, kind of, sort of. When he would write episodes early on in the series, it was kind of like he had these ideas and they just tacked his name on. So, and then later on in the series, he would write episodes like The Unnatural and Hollywood AD, which are fantastic. I always say David Duchovny's a better writer than he is an actor. So, stick with what you're good at, David. That's what I say. Anyway, it's jarring. You know, you're thrown into this, but then Mulder and Scully are on the same page. When they discover this about their boss, they're like, oh my God, we have a mom. That's their reaction. We'll get to it in a minute. Because Mr. Skinner is this very reserved character. And you're on the same footing when you come into this episode as Mulder and Scully. I like to tell my spouse that Skinner adopted Mulder and Scully. He formally adopted them at the end of Paperclip, at the beginning of season 3. And they're feeling each other out. For anyone who says Skinner does not have a parental bond with Mulder and Scully, I want them to watch this episode. It might be Mitch and David and Jillian and just how they play it, but they very much act like a dad interacting with his children. That is how the characters play these roles. A lot of people ship Skinner with Scully or Skinner with Mulder or all three of them together, and you do you, but I've never seen it. I mean, to me, Mr. Skinner is their father. He's their good dad. This might be me projecting on the characters a little bit, because I always say Mr. Skinner is the dad I never had. He was the dad who raised me. And he's a wonderful dad. And for Father's Day, I really want to talk about like my favorite Skinner moments. But right now we're going to talk about Avatar. I think this is the first Skinner-centric episode I've done. And that's a shame, because Mr. Skinner's great. I love him. Love that beautiful bald man. And when he's in pain, I'm hurting as well. And boy, is he in pain right now. He picks up a pen to sign his divorce papers. And he's like, my wife gave me this as an anniversary present. And he says, I don't remember what year. There's a lot of parallels drawn in this episode between Skinner and Scully, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. But he's a reserved man. Like, he keeps his feelings inside, not because he's being a dick, I don't think. I think it's because he's trying to protect the people he loves. And that's how Mr. Skinner is. We'll talk more about it in a minute. So when he is showing even a little emotion, and he shows a lot of emotion in this episode, he's fucked up. It's very much like Scully and Redux too. Like, when you see Scully like crying and falling apart, like, you know shit's bad. And that's in stark contrast to Mulder, who's just, he's broadcasting his feelings at 11, 24 hours a day, you know. And it's kind of refreshing to see a character like, in contrast to Mulder, who's like, you know, I can't show all of my feelings all of the time because it might hurt someone. And again, that might be me projecting on the characters. I was raised in an environment where that was very much the case. So I kind of see myself in Scully and Skinner. Anyway, he's about to sign his divorce papers, and he's like, no, I can't do it. I just can't do this. Boy, does this episode show how men and women deal with grief differently. And then you meet his lawyer, Jane. This lady plays a couple characters in the series, usually very shitty characters. She plays the mom in Eve, who just burns the photo of her daughter at the end, which is just unbelievable. But Jane's pretty awesome. She gets like 3 lines in this episode, and she's one of the most fascinating characters in the show. Like, could you imagine having this objective position and knowing every single detail of Walter Skinner's life? Like, yeah, Jane's amazing. Any fics out there about Jane, the lawyer? I'd love to read them. It'd be pretty awesome to like read about this character arc from Jane's perspective. That'd be pretty cool. Anyway, Mr. Skinner dips. He's like, I'm not signing these papers. I can't do this right now. He goes to a bar, which is giving off pretty heavy vibes of Mulder going to the bar in Fight the Future. You can tell Mr. Skinner probably doesn't drink a lot. So he goes to the bar. He meets this woman, and this guy's harassing her, and you kind of see, like, Mr. Skinner's character is like he has to protect everyone. Because, and I think that stems from him, like, losing so many of his friends when he was a kid. I mean, yeah, he tells Mulder, he was like, I was 17 years old, and I was in Vietnam, and I was watching all of my friends be slaughtered and die like flies, and having to kill people, you know, and yeah, and this is how he copes with it, is like he has that survivor's guilt. Again, a parallel with Scully's character. We'll get to it in a little bit. So and you know, Mulder has a good heaping help of survivor's guilt too. We can't forget our traumatized spooky boy. So anyway, he meets this woman, and she's like, hey, do you ever get tired of being alone? And Mr. Skinner hops into bed with her. Me and my spouse were watching this. My spouse didn't grow up watching the X-Files, so this is our rewatches are an interesting experience for him. And he said, "Mr. Skinner is my dad. He raised me. I don't want him to be hot." But oh boy, I was looking up photos to put in the preview images for my video, and it's amazing on Google how many searches have the tag Walter Skinner shirtless in them. And I'm like, yeah, Google images. I see what you're doing there. So, shirtless Walter Skinner makes love to this woman. I think her name's Karina, and she looks like the woman who plays Meredith on The Parent Trap. There's a lot of parallels to the movie The Parent Trap in this episode. We'll fucking get there. So, Mr. Skinner's making love to this woman. And look, I love to see... Walter Skinner's hot, okay? He's hot, and I love to see him shirtless. But you know who we never got a sex scene like... Mulder and Scully. We never got a sex scene with them, so fuck me, you know. But Mr. Skinner can have one, you know. I'm not as pissed off about it because I love Mr. Skinner, and if anyone deserves to get some, it's him, okay? Except for Scully deserves it a little bit more. So the woman bends down to kiss him, and surprise, it's an old lady. Mr. Skinner's reaction to this old woman on top of him is very much the reaction of the people who encounter the poor old people on the ship in Dodcom. They're like, oh, old people, oh no. They're like, an old person, oh my god. I'm like, yeah, old people are, the majority of our human population now. So I don't know why you're so surprised to see one, Mr. Skinner. But I think Mr. Skinner is more surprised that the woman who's on top of him is not the woman he went to bed with. So this old woman bends down to kiss him, and he wakes up. It was a vision. And Karina's dead. Her neck is broken. It's very graphic. This show fucking hates sex workers. Anytime the X-Files gets a chance to traumatize or torture a sex worker, who is always a woman, by the way, because this show also fucking hates women, they do it, and it's gross, and I hate it. Anyway, poor Karina's dead. Karina, a.k.a. Meredith from The Parent Trap. And you get the credits. And then you get Mulder coming to see about his dad. The father-son bond between Mulder and Skinner, especially in this episode, is something else. A lot of people say, like, you can't headcanon Skinner as like Mulder and Scully's adopted father because that would put Mulder and Scully in this incestuous brother-sister relationship. Ick, you know. But I disagree because I think Scully is very much Skinner's surrogate daughter and Mulder is very much his surrogate dumbass son-in-law. and in the environment I grew up in and I live in now, like, familial bonds are a big deal. Like, mother-in-laws and father-in-laws very much view their in-law kids as their kids. Like, they have that platonic parental bond with them. So I don't think it's that far-fetched to headcanon Skinner as their actual FBI dad. So Mulder's snooping around in this hotel room where Mr. Skinner hooked up with this lady. And you see poor Mr. Skinner in a chair just slumped over staring into space. My dad's going through it, okay? And then Mr. Skinner comes out and Mulder's like, he's like, look, Mulder, I appreciate your concern. I don't want you to get involved. And I think that's a lot of Mr. Skinner's character. Like, he reserves his feelings because he's afraid of hurting the people around him. In the same way, he very much wants to protect everyone. Like, not just Mulder and Scully. Like, if if any person that he deems weaker or more vulnerable than himself, he has to jump in there and protect them. And you've seen that so many times. And again, I think that's a lot of what he went through as a young man. Like, he lost so many people he cared for. He has to try to make up for it, in his mind at least. So Mulder talks to the detective. All of the detectives Mulder and Scully talk to in like these Monster of the Week episodes, I wonder if they have a support group. This detective, the detective from fucking Demons, the detective from Christmas Carol, Jack from Chinga, they're just all together sharing their shared trauma, their experiences with Mulder and Scully. So it's like the hotel owners association. They all get together and blacklist Mulder and Scully. Side character support groups. So he tells Mulder, like, he took this woman to bed, her neck's broken, and his fingerprints are all over her. And he's not trying to defend himself. And this guy's like, I think he killed this woman. Mulder will not believe him. So my lawn chair is broken. Like the cloth is broken out of the bottom. And my cat is trying to lie in it. And it's hilarious. She just keeps falling out. I'm like, oh baby. So, in this episode, like, Mulder wants to blindly believe that Skinner's innocent. Without doing any of the work to prove him that way. Scully is very much wanting to prove Mr. Skinner's innocence, and doing the work to get there. Oh, Scully doing all the fucking work. Wow, what a surprise. You've never seen that before. I think Mulder and Scully are both right and wrong. Also, as soon as Mulder stops speaking with the detective, he gets on the phone with Scully. She's driving through the pouring rain to save her FBI dad. She's yelling at Mulder on the phone. She's like, I'm on my way. I'm going to save my FBI father. Like, you go, you precious little girl. So, I think Mulder's blind faith in Skinner very much spurned Scully on to prove his innocence. But I think Mulder just, like, accepting this with no facts, which is just Mulder's character, is dumb. Like, he might believe that Skinner's innocent, but who else is, if he's not going to get the evidence to prove his innocence? And Scully's very much like, you know, and she tells Mulder, she's like, I feel the same way about Skinner that you do. And when she said that, I'm like, nope, nothing here but assistant director in the FBI and his 2 autistic FBI children. Nothing to see here, folks. So, like, yeah, I think Scully wants to do the work to prove Skinner's innocence. So, they go to autopsy the body of this woman. And Scully's like, she's like, yeah, like, she was strangled to death, and Skinner's fingerprints are all over her. But then she turns out the light in the morgue, and she sees this glowing, substance around this dead woman's mouth and neck. And Scully's like, huh, now that's kind of strange. That'll come back in a minute. So, they, go to confront their dad, who's been released from police custody. And it's so cute, like, how they're scurrying after him, like, Dad, we're here for you. We want to help you. And he's like, leave me alone, kids. If I express emotions, I might harm the people around me. And I want to be a bystander watching that, conversation. Anyway, Mr. Skinner sees the old woman that was on top of him in bed, and she's dressed in a red raincoat. I kind of get the feeling that this is a nod to the movie Schindler's List, where there was this little girl in a red coat. A lot of movies and media, TV shows do that. They'll like have this enigmatic character in red, and it's like it's a significant symbol in these characters' lives. So I kind of think it's a nod to that, maybe. So when did this show come out, and when did Schindler's List come out? I'm trying to remember. Schindler's List came out in like 1994. So yeah, I could see that. This is like 1996. So there's also some great homage to The Shining. We'll get there in just a minute. So Mr. Skinner runs toward the old woman, and the old woman like turns around. He turns her back around because she's still wearing the raincoat, and it's his wife, Sharon. Before we talk about Sharon, who's a whole goddamn unit, Sharon Skinner. Oh my God. Whew, I need a fan. Whew, she's hot. So, Sharon Skinner's fucking hot. All right. So, it's very much like the scene in All Things where Scully sees the woman with the ponytail walking across the street, and she runs up to her and turns her around, and it's Mulder. Again, some great parallels between Skinner and Scully in this episode. This episode, like, wants to focus on the relationship between Mulder and Skinner, and it inadvertently gives us some of the greatest Scully-Skinner parallels and moments in the show. So, also, I think this is these two scenes being so similar, the scene in All Things and the scene in Avatar, it almost signals like the show recognizing Mr. Skinner's precognitive abilities, which he absolutely has, and Scully also having those precognitive abilities. This was something I wish the show had explored. Like Mr. Skinner saying to Scully, like, yeah, I've gone through this stuff. I've seen people who are dead. I've seen visions of the future. Like, I've seen these things that science can't explain. And him being a very reserved person who relies on logic, very much like Scully, he could be the person, like, mentoring her through that. That would have been great. But of course, this is the X-Files, where all the best potential's laid out before them and they choose the worst option. Let's explore Mulder's bullshit and the smoking man and reproductive trauma. Like, and we had all this wonderful opportunities. Speaking of missed opportunities, oh boy, Sharon Skinner, here she is. She's hot as fuck. She's got this, her hair game is just so on point. She's got these arresting blue eyes. And she's a goddamn MILF, okay? I like the way she looks older, like, than Scully. Like, you... Also, I want to just take a little moment. I got some hate a few weeks ago. This twat on Twitter was talking about how, I was a dumbass and stupid and crazy for shipping, Skinner and, Maggie Scully. And to that little twat, I want to say, then why the fuck does Sharon Skinner look just like Maggie Scully? Okay? Riddle me that, bitch. So, suck it, you dick. Anyway, yeah, Sharon Skinner's hot. She's a fucking MILF. Like, goddamn. Anyway, he talks to her and he's like, no, I can't show my emotions or I'll hurt someone, and he dips. And then Mulder and Scully come up and they're like, she calls him Walter. She's like, Walter. They look at her and they're like, do you know our dad? And she's like, I thought I did. You know, I'm his wife, his estranged wife. And the look on Mulder and Scully's face is adorable. They're like, oh my God, we have a mom. We have a new mom. This episode is Mulder and Scully star in The Parent Trap. That's the title to this vlog. Mulder and Scully starring in the Parent Trap, starring Mulder and Scully. It is so The Parent Trap. And And this episode came out before the movie The Parent Trap, which is interesting, I guess. Who inspired who? You know, who inspired who? Was the X-Files responsible for the 1998 Lindsay Lohan family adventure, The Parent Trap? Who the fuck knows? So they go have a cup of coffee with their new mom, Sharon. And Sharon's rad. When I first watched this when I was a baby, if anyone had asked me, like, what would Mr. Skinner's wife be like, I would say, like, oh, she'd be this, like, meek little lamb of a woman. And she's not. She is caring and compassionate, but she's tough. Like, she stands up to Skinner and his wall of reserve, and she gives him shit, and she's fucking rad. Especially in a show that views women as either whores or virgins. Just look at their treatment of Scully. And to have a woman like Sharon, who's like, has agency and has opinions and who's speaking her mind. But of course, when a woman does that in the X-Files, she's either tortured or killed, as we have seen, i.e. Melissa Scully, i.e. Monica Reyes, i.e. Dana Scully, i.e. just pick one. And of course it happens to Sharon Skinner. You know, she's axed eventually. We'll talk about that. Goddamn. So they're talking to Sharon. She's talking to Scully, and she says, you know, Walter, her husband, equates silence and reserve with strength. And I think this is the two actresses, Jillian and this woman playing Sharon, who put this in. I don't think this is the writers didn't intend this, but the look that travels between them is Scully's very much thinking of her own dad. Like, he was very much that way. Like, he loved his children and he cared for them and his wife very deeply, but he was a person who would not express that, to the detriment of others around him. And that's what Skinner is like. And I also just want to point out the time that Skinner really turned up his dad mode to take care of Mulder and Scully was around the time Scully's father died. And that just brings a tear to my eye. I'm like, Walter Skinner, goddamn, what a guy. I wish he was my dad. Don't we all wish Walter Skinner was our dad? And the look that travels between the two women, you get that. And again, like, how amazing would it have been to integrate Sharon Skinner into the show and have her come back as the cast of the main characters. Hell, her and Scully could have formed this bond, like this mother-daughter bond, a lot like Cassandra Spender and Scully form. But again, this is the X-Files. We can't have nice things. So then Scully gets a call and from the morgue, and Sharon turns to Mulder and she says, Walter didn't talk about many people from work, but you're one of the few people he mentions. And this is supposed to be like, the writers are like, oh, Skinner like loves Mulder and just respects him and idolizes him. And it comes off as, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on your tail. Oh, grumpy little lady. I'm so sorry. She's taking her nap. She doesn't want to be interrupted right now. So, but you'll interrupt me when I take my naps, right? Yeah, that's how it works. Double standard. Cat's double standard. So, Sharon, but what it comes off as is Skinner comes home from work exhausted and tells his wife, Sharon, guess what that motherfucker Mulder did now? And I'm amazed he never mentions Scully, because Scully's the favorite of the two. There's no doubt about it. I really want Sharon to tell Mulder, like, yeah, Walter talks about what a pain in the ass you always are. Which is, you know, that's what Skinner does. So, Mulder and Scully are running around trying to to prove Skinner's innocence. They trace the woman who he was in bed with, and they find out that she's a prostitute. And they trace her to this brothel. They talk to the madam. She plays some other characters in the show, and I'm blanking on which one she plays. So if you know that, please drop it in the comments. I'm curious to know. Mulder also makes this joke when he's looking around the brothel, and it's this pretty swanky penthouse, and he's like, business must be, Scully says, business must be booming. And then Mulder says, I think you mean banging. And Scully gives him this little look and this little smirk, and she's like, well, fuck later, spooky boy. Like, when we clear our dad's name, we'll fuck. When we clear my dad's name and your father-in-law's name, we'll fuck later. Like, we'll have a little celebratory fuck time. So the madam comes down, and they're like, hey, we need to know, like, who paid for this prostitute. And she's like, it was Walter Skinner. Mulder and Scully are so fucking messed up learning the nitty-gritty details of their father's sex life. And, you know, it's relatable. All kids feel that. Okay, all kids feel that. They're like, my dad is banging? Oh, my God. So they go out. They talk some trash about Skinner. Mulder's like, what was he thinking? What was our... How could he? How could he? Scully's like, you'd think he could be a bit more discreet. And they're just, like, all talking trash about him. They get to the car, and Scully's like, we don't know much about Skinner. Like, and again, they're on the same footing as the audience. Like, the only thing we knew about Skinner was, his past in Vietnam. And that's just because he told that to Mulder as, like, this pep talk in one breath. And that's the only thing we know about him. So, like, yeah, we're on the same footing as him. We're like, oh my God, he has a wife. He's getting divorced. Oh my God, he's seeing this old woman. They get back to the office, and Scully tells Mulder, she's like, I found this, like, spectral, illuminated substance around this woman's mouth. And they go back to the morgue to look, and it's gone. And Scully's like, I sent this off to be analyzed. And the lab came back and said, there's nothing to analyze. There was nothing there. And then Mulder looks at Scully and says, are you sure you saw it? And I'm like, okay, Fox Mulder, a.k.a. the man who believes everything he sees without question. Fuck you, man. And Scully's like, yeah, fuck you. I know what I saw. And again, like, this is great proof to Scully, like, saying, when you give Scully the evidence to the paranormal, she will believe in it. And again, people who are just like, oh, Scully's willfully ignorant. She's just like the skeptic, and she'll never believe no matter how much proof she gets. I'm like, no, like, the proof's there and she believes it. So, you know, fuck all those guys. Anyway, they get back to the office, and Scully mentions Skinner's psychiatrist, like Jane the lawyer, who's fascinating. We never see them. Imagine this person, that Mr. Skinner, who's one of the most reserved people, comes into his office and just spills all of his feelings to this guy. He's just telling him, like, yeah, I got these two agents, and man, they're so in love, but they will not hook up, and I've tried everything. I've tried to put them on stakeouts. I've tried to put them undercover in a suburban home where they have to masquerade as two newlyweds. I've tried fucking everything, Phil. What am I supposed to do? And Phil's like, sir, let's talk about your marriage. And Skinner's like, no. I would love to Phil the psychiatrist. Fic writers, get the fuck on it. I'd love to see Jane and Skinner's psychiatrist, who I'm naming Phil apparently, hook up and have some torrid sex. That'd be pretty nice. So Mulder says, Skinner's like, Scully says that Skinner's psychiatrist told her that he's having these dreams about this old woman who straddles his chest. And Mulder's like, oh, you mean a succubus. And he shows Scully the pictures of the succubus. And this is where the episode devolves into some of the shittiest writing I've ever seen on this show. Now, it's not quite My Struggle For or William or Emily shitty, lazy writing, okay? But it's close. It's fucking up there, all right? And to be second to that is not good, all right? So Sharon goes to see Skinner at his divorce depression apartment. He's pouring himself some scotch, and I gotta say, divorcee depression Skinner is pretty fucking smoking hot. Like, I can see it. So, she goes to talk to him, and she's giving him shit. She's like, your reserve ruined our marriage. Like, you wouldn't make yourself emotionally available to me, and I couldn't live like that, and I left your ass. And I'm like, yeah, go Sharon. That's awesome. Like, and then she touches his face, and she's like, let me in. And he's like, no. And I'm like, damn it, Skinner. This woman is amazing. Couldn't you do this one thing for her? And she's tough. I don't see why Skinner thinks he'd have to put up this wall of reserve to protect her. But again, that's one of his character flaws, like Scully. So, he goes to, he lays down to take a nap. He pulls out their wedding photo of him and Sharon. It's a jump scare. Seeing Mr. Skinner with that much hair, I'm like, whoa, okay. He's good looking, but I'm used to my dad bald, okay? And he goes to sleep with the wedding photo. Did you hear that? He fucking goes to sleep with the wedding photo. I'm over here crying, okay? Anyway, he wakes up to screaming. The old woman he saw, he only sees her in his mirror, and that's terrifying. She's nowhere else around. That's some Shining stuff. Oh, the homage to The Shining is so good in this episode. He wakes up, the dick bag detective that we saw at the beginning is there, and he's like, hey, somebody ran your wife off the road, and we think it's you. So Mulder and Scully go to look at the car of this that ran Sharon off the road, and the guy apparently died, or he no, he didn't die. His face got planted in the airbag, which is kind of funny. So Mulder takes the impression that's on the airbag to Agent Pendrell. And I gotta say, okay, Mulder, you did this. That's pretty good detective work, man. Like, Fox Mulder or David Duchovny gets one thing per episode, and this is it. You did well. He takes it to Agent Pendrell, and the minute he says, like, we've got to free our FBI dad, Pendrell's like, I'm on board. Okay, I'm gonna marry your partner someday. And Mulder's like, what? And Pendrell's like, what? And Pendrell's like, so, Walter Skinner is going to be my father-in-law, too, because we're going to have, like, this open polyamorous relationship going on with Scully. And Mulder's like, what? And Pendrell's like, huh? What? I didn't hear you. And then he's like, yeah, I'll do everything to save our FBI dad. And Mulder's like, don't you mean my FBI dad? And Pendrell's like, yeah. So the real X-file is why Mulder was never jealous of Pendrell, because Pendrell's gunning so hard for Scully, and men have admired her way less, and Mulder's just wildly jealous of them. So I don't understand it. Like, Mulder pulls out his guns. He puts up his dukes for Sheriff Hartwell, but he won't for Pendrell, who absolutely has Dana Scully in his sights. So anyway, I ship Pendrell and Scully all day long. When I was 12, I wrote this fic where Scully hooked up with Pendrell and Mulder in like this polyamorous thing because, quote, she wanted her soft boy and her spooky boy. And I'm like, go 12-year-old me. I'm like, yeah. So I also fuck this show for killing off Pendrell. So turns out they render the face through Pendrell's crime lab magic from the face imprinted on the airbag. And they go back to the brothel, and they find that the madam has been tossed out of a window in a just terrifying image. Like, you see her stuck in the awning of this skyscraper, and it's terrifying. So then they see one of the call girls that they saw at the brothel who's watching from afar, and they take her to a diner. And I just love how Mulder and Scully just take rando people to old-timey diners. It's so cute. It's very much like Twin Peaks. And I think that's the homage to Twin Peaks, which was a huge inspiration for this show. Anyway, they're talking to this woman. I don't remember her name. I think she plays the scientist in the season 4 episode Synchrony, but I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, they look really alike. They could be sisters, is what I'm saying. So they take her to the diner, and she's like, Karina was my friend, and now these goons are going to be coming after me. Also, prior to this, Mulder goes to see Skinner, and he's like, they're using this, like, the government goons are using Mr. Skinner's indiscretion as a reason to shut down the X-Files. And I'm like, Fox Mulder. And then I made the little clap emoji, and I said, not everything is about you. Like, I just want to pop him in his stupid little nose. Like, not everything's about you, Fox Mulder. Mr. Skinner's going through a fucking divorce, okay? Can you, like, not be self-centered for 2 seconds, man? So then, in that scene though, Mulder and Skinner do have this really sweet father-son, like, heart-to-heart talk, and I really like that. And Skinner says, like, I told you about my experience in Vietnam and how I had this near-death experience. Yeah, Mulder says, you had a near-death experience, and Skinner was like, there's nothing near about it. Like, I was gone. And I watched, like, my friends die. And then he said this old woman came to him, the one he keeps seeing, and carried him away from the light, which is like death, I guess. All I see is that scene from Shrek with Donkey, and he's like, if you see a light, he says, do not go into the light. Like, he says, if you see a tunnel, do not go into the light. And that's all I hear. So, love Donkey from Shrek. What a king. So he hooks up with a dragon. Man, no one fucking talks about that, do they? About how Shrek and Donkey have how Dragon and Donkey have these little dragon donkey babies, and it's just so disturbing. Anyway, God, I want to watch the Shrek movies now. That was a whole fucking thing, wasn't it? So, they go and talk to this poor woman in the diner, the call girl. And she's like, Mulder's like, Scully tells her, he's like, they're using Mr. Skinner's indiscretion against him to try to remove him from being the assistant director at the FBI. And now they're cleaning house. They're like killing all of the people who were involved with this prostitute he slept with. So Scully's like, look, we can protect you. And Mulder's like, but you're going to have to help us. And I'm like, couldn't you just protect her anyway, dude? Like, why you want to talk that way? So anyway, Mulder tells the woman, like, he says, we can protect you. That's my donkey going crazy in the background. So, he gets her to call the goons who were like orchestrating all of this. They bought the prostitute for Mr. Skinner. They made sure she went to bed with him. It's the sketchy bastard from Wet Wired, and it's the sketchy bastard who shoots Mr. X. Fuck this guy. I hate him. And he's like, yeah, we can meet you at the Ambassador Hotel in an hour. Sure. And they're watching them from these goons are watching them in the diner. So, they go to the ambassador, and it's cute. Mulder's at the bar drinking tea, trying to look smooth, and I'm like, yeah, Fox Mulder, you've never drank a cup of tea in your fucking life. Like, you give us real tea nerds a bad name. Anyway, he's on the phone with Scully, who's in the woman's hotel room, this call girl's hotel room, and she's ready to, like, pop a cap in these motherfuckers' ass. One of the motherfuckers, like, slams Scully against the wall when he opens the door and knocks her out. Fuck this show, you know. Scully can't see any of the action because she's a woman. Fuck this show. Anyway, but it's okay because Mr. Skinner gallops up there to save his baby girl and this woman, and he shoots the goons. Good job, Mr. Skinner. There's also a really cute moment where when he's telling Mulder about this old woman who saved him, Mulder's like, I believe you're innocent, Dad. And Skinner doesn't say, why, thank you, son, or like, hey, I appreciate that. He's just like, what'd you say, Scully? Think about me. Oh my God. Mr. Skinner is so concerned about what Scully thinks about him. It's precious. Before Mr. Skinner ran up here to, like, shoot the bad guys, he was in the hospital room with Sharon, who's in a coma from the car wreck. Fuck this show. She wakes up, and he sees the old woman lying in the bed. And then it's Sharon lying in the bed. And she's saying, like, you need to listen to me. I'm going to tell you how to save this woman and your baby girl, Agent Scully. And, like, what? Is Sharon really the woman, the old woman? Did Mr. Skinner marry a succubus? Did Sharon Skinner, was she the one who saved him in Vietnam? Were they even married when he went off to Vietnam? And this show is just like, what is it? They're going, shh, and they're putting their fingers to our lips, and they're like, shh, don't ask any more questions. Just shh, you'll forget about it. Just shh. And then they're dangling the keys in front of us. They're like, here, look at the pretty keys. Look at the pretty keys. Look at the pretty keys. Go get the pretty keys. Go get the pretty keys. Like we're fucking babies. Like we're just gonna fucking forget about Sharon Skinner, who's never fucking mentioned again. Until goddamn season 11. Fuck this fucking show. I fucking hate it. It is some of the laziest writing and biggest waste of potential I have ever seen in a show riddled with lazy writing and wasted potential. Fuck you, Howard Gordon and David Duchovny. I fucking hate you. So then, Mr. Skinner shoots the goons, and the next thing we see, Mr. Skinner's in his office. He's taking the police tape off of his desk. Mulder and Scully come in there. He gives them an attaboy and an attagirl because he's a proud dad. He's also like, thanks for covering my ass, guys. I can count on you, right? And Scully's like, yeah, until the end of, she's like, yeah, until the end of season 4 when I get sus of you again. He's like, what? She's like, nothing. So then she leaves. And then Skinner takes out his ring, his wedding ring, and puts it on his finger. And we never hear about Sharon Skinner or talk about her ever fucking again, because that's how fucking divorce works. Fuck this goddamn show. Like, this episode began wonderful. You just took a deep dive into Mr. Skinner's character. You saw these amazing interactions he had with Mulder and Scully. You got these wonderful familial bonds he has with his 2 FBI kids. You had Sharon. She's a badass. You get her relationship with Skinner. And then this episode takes a fucking nosedive into flames. And it's terrible. And you know what? That's a great way to celebrate our 1-year anniversary of reviewing X-Files episodes. Because the X-Files is everything wonderful. The most wonderful thing you can ever think of. And the most terrible, heart-wrenching thing you can ever think of at the same fucking time. And the writers don't care about us. So this is a great way to celebrate this. And did you hear that? Oh my God, guess what? Anastasia, you just got through this entire episode without making an Avatar The Last Airbender joke. Hooray, you win! Yay, I did it! I went through the whole episode and didn't make a James Cameron or Avatar The Last Airbender joke. I will see you guys later. I love you. Thanks for sticking with me for this one crazy year. I love you. Bye. Mwah.